Hey, you guys, lean in with me here. So excited you're here. Welcome, welcome. Come and join me, will you? I have a big question for you. Do you have something that you study? And I don't mean that you read you read it a few times and then you can sit down and regurgitate it onto a test paper, and then someone reads it, and then they give you a grade, and then you forget it. Do you truly read to study? Because there's a big difference. And if you're like me, and like I literally lived off of everything I read and could regurgitate, and then people would give me A's for it, and then I was like, sweet, I must be doing really great. But then the fact is I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. Right? No matter who you are or what you do, okay? Know that every successful person will attribute their success to the fact that they read. It's a trait that has stood the test of time. Okay? And I have learned to love reading. And when I worked even in corporate, I heard the saying, leaders are readers. So I hopped on board. I was like, I want to be a leader, so I'm going to be a reader. And I had already finished like 8 years of post-secondary school. So I was like, I've read a ton. I know all the things. Look at all the letters at the end of my name. Look, they show that I've read. I read every personal development book I could get my mitts on. I would then go to like the big stadiums and I would watch all my favorite authors give talks. And they would leave me so pumped up. So between all the letters at the end of my name and the fact that I was pumped up by all these authors, I was like, man, I know things. I'm one of those leaders or readers people. But here's the thing. My results, they were actually reflecting that I didn't know anything. Sure, I had a great job, corporate healthcare, came with a six-figure income, pension benefits, the whole works. But that feeling of wanting more for myself, I didn't know how to get it. I didn't know how to get it. And the how kept getting in my way. So I would just pick up another book and I would try to read and find the answers. What I didn't realize is that I was groomed to read and regurgitate, rinse and repeat. I wasn't programmed to study. There's a big difference. Reading and test taking what got me through high school, 2 undergraduate degrees, a master's degree. But I learned that it was not going to get me to where I wanted in the speed that I wanted to get to my end goal and in a way that I could actually sustain it. So I'm not knocking on school, not knocking on it. Been there, did it. And I can honestly say I am never done learning. And I'm going to talk about that today. There's just a difference between the way we are programmed in our society and what's actually going to get you to where you want to go in a sustainable way so that you're not like feeling burnt out and dissatisfied and having income and results that go like this. When I say this, people often ask me about my study habits. So I'm going to share that process with you today. But before I go into it, I want to share a couple of things first. okay, that kind of explain the unconventional approach to reading. What I'm saying is that we are programmed to just read and regurgitate. What I want you to do, and what I want you to think about, like, do I do this? Is do you read to understand? Okay, there's a quote from a book. It's called College Sense. And the quote, what college and high school advisors don't tell you about college. Okay. And the author's unknown. But when I read this quote, it says here, if you study to remember, you will forget. If you study to understand, you will remember. Okay. And here's why those statements are so important. Education isn't about hammering information in. I learned very quickly. I'm one of those super annoying people that I could get information hammered in and I remember it, I regurgitate it, and I didn't need to like study a ton and I could just blast it out. B plus, A, like that was I was pretty standard. And I would have friends be like, "Man, that's so annoying." But you know what's even more annoying? The fact that I could do that but I didn't learn anything from it. Okay. Education isn't about hammering information in, it's a process. We don't hammer stuff in, it's about drawing what's already in you out. Okay. The word education itself, it comes from the Latin word educo, which means to educe, to develop, to draw from within. And yet we are programmed that I'm gonna take. I'm gonna take from my teachers. I'm gonna take from my parents. I'm gonna take from the TV. I'm gonna take from social media. I'm gonna take. What we then don't understand is that we have everything within us. Everything's already created, right? So then we start to think, well, if I want to get to where I want to go, it must be outside of me. It has to be because that's how I've been getting all of my information up until now. So it must be true. But what I can tell you is if you study to understand, you will not only remember, but it will actually grow your awareness and you will start attracting in different opportunities that are going to get you to where you want to go faster. And your results won't be like this. Okay. You create a consciousness that you will never lose because you're drawing it from within and you're not relying on outside sources to get you where you want to go. Okay, so that's the first part. The second is truly getting into the habit of reading to understand every single day, every day. And some people are like, yeah, I do that. I like read every night before bed. Well, then what are you reading? Don't get me wrong. I love there's your whatever books. I can't even think of Danielle Steele authors that you can you know, probably not going to move you towards your goals though. I know lots of people are like, I will study Danielle Steele all day long. Probably not going to get you to where you want to go. Okay. For me, I don't just read a book, I study it. And I have a higher ratio of books that are going to move me forward versus I've never actually read a Danielle Steele book, but my read for pleasure novels. Those are ones typically that I'm like listening to, while I'm like doing dishes or driving or whatever, right? Like those are those kind of books, right? But if I'm studying, these are the books that are like in my hand and they're like flag labeled and they're all the things. Okay, it's not unusual for me to read a paragraph what feels like 100 times or the same page for a week. Not long ago, I had a book on my desk that was open to the same page where I read the same 2 paragraphs for like a month. Like, why would I do that? Because I know that it is crucial to read to understand and apply what you are reading, not to just remember it and get inspired by it. Like when I do this for you, I hope that you leave here inspired. Absolutely. But more importantly, I hope you leave here and start taking action. That you are in pursuit of something bigger than what you have right now, because that's, as humans, that's what we are here for. We are here to create. And by law, if we don't create, we disintegrate. And sometimes that disintegration is like long and drawn out. It's not like you're studying for a test and you're going to regurgitate it and then you're going to forget it. These are things that you are going to apply. So the book, for example, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, I had that book. Dave and I had 2 copies of it. He had been given a copy when he was 19, when he started his first business. And I had bought a copy when, like, probably 20 years ago, when I first started working in corporate healthcare, because someone talked about it. But we both read it, but we read it and we're like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. It's fascinating. And then we put it back on the shelf. And then when I really learned about this reading to study, and that book was recommended for me, I was like, why do I feel like I've seen that book before? And sure enough, I went over to our bookshelf and we had 2 copies. And I said to Dave, you have a copy of this? Have you read it? He goes, yeah, I read it. And I put it down. That book is not meant to be read. That book is meant to be studied. Same thing with another one. U Squared, Price Pritchett. Small but mighty, man. Small but mighty. Okay, so here's what my study habits look like. Okay, find a book that can teach you to be, do, and have something that you want. Again, I just gave you 2 books for me that totally do that for me. And don't let Think and Grow Rich fool you, because you're like, well, I'm not driven by money. Richness just isn't money. What does being rich look like to you? Okay. When you find a book that does that, another one that we've studied, which I love, Power of Awareness, Neville Goddard. So good. Okay. Study every day. We study, when I say we, I mean the High Vibe Society. We study together every single morning. And we do it for an hour. And the reason that we study together is accountability. We're getting ourselves into the environment that supports all of our goals. Every single person has a different goal. So we could all read the same book together. Like, we each choose a paragraph when we start reading, right? We could do that together. But every single one of us is applying it to our goal, to something different. Okay, but read it every single day and study it. Paragraph, and then stop and think, how is what I just read going to contribute to my awareness? Okay, read slowly. Try to really understand the truth of what the author actually meant. What do you think they meant by this? Start asking really good questions. We've talked about that, right? Quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And when you come across an idea that, like, totally lights you up, we call it an aha moment. Just ping. Read it over and over and over and over and over. Day after day, week after week, month after month. Even if you've memorized it. A lot of the things that I say to you, come right from the books that I've read over and over and over and over again. So this is what I say. I don't necessarily, I didn't create universal law, but I'm the messenger of it. And I've read a lot about it and I've studied it. Okay. And when you can apply what you've been reading, that's when you know that idea is planted in your subconscious mind. And then move on to the next paragraph or the next page and repeat the process. Because once it's planted, that's when you're going to stop getting results like this and start just. Okay, when you study, this is what leads to success. Before I really understood this, guys, I used to blame my circumstances of whether I wasn't getting consistent results or my bank account didn't look the way I wanted it to, or my health or my relationships or the fact that I was stressed and burnt out and blah, 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 blah. I used to blame it on the fact that I didn't have, I must not be able to do this because I don't have a certificate in that. And then I'd go back to school. That was my answer for everything. And then I was like, oh, I really want to run my own business. Well, I guess I need to get a business degree in order to do that. Like I'd have all the excuses on why I couldn't. But the fact is, you don't need a business degree to run a business. When I started studying, I discovered it had nothing to do with these outside circumstances. And it had everything to do with my own self-image, with my own lack of awareness. Okay, so don't let your lack of awareness keep you from moving forward in your life. Okay, you can find everything you could ever want to know about personal development in the books that interest you. Hang out with people that are going to support that movement for you. You already have everything you need locked up inside of you. You just aren't aware of how to get it out. Okay, reading and studying draw out and develop from within. And then before you know it, you're no longer looking outside of you to get where you want to go. Because you just have this like unwavering faith that you're just like, I have it inside of me. I just got to keep I just got to keep growing my awareness and then I'll get to where I want to go. It's inevitable. Okay. And this is what will empower you to really show up as your best self, developing that untapped potential. If you're like, oh, I don't know if I could hold myself accountable to doing that. I don't know if that'll work for me. Come join us. Come hang out with us and study in the morning. I can promise you what you'll get is we read to understand. We study every single day in the High Vibe Society, every single day, even on weekends. I know your paradigm is like, what? I take weekends off. Does your future self take weekends off from getting where they want to go? Could you imagine? What if you adopted the belief that if you studied every day for even just an hour, you have 12 hours in a day, that you could have anything you ever wanted, that your awareness would just grow? What if you believed that? Could you imagine? We don't just study books, we study ourselves. I mean, we study really brilliant books, but we study how these books are going to get us where we want to go. We study to raise our awareness so that we can become the best versions of ourselves. You should totally come study with us. I promise it will be an absolute game changer. It's like my favorite part of the day. First thing in the morning, fill my cup. Half of the time, my kids are waking up in the middle of it and they're coming to sit on my lap. I'll link it up for you so you can check it out. But it's an absolute game changer. And it is one habit that if you truly commit to developing it, again, not just reading, every other personal development junkie knows, okay, my checklist says I got to read for 15 minutes a day. Check. Don't read. Don't read to read. Read to understand. That is what's going to get you where you want to go. Commit to it. Deal? All right, I will link it up for you. And I want you to come join us. Okay? It is powerful. Have an amazing day.